There is a particular silence that settles over the New Mexico desert in late spring, partner. Not the comfortable kind. It sits on your chest. It watches. The road across the Jornada del Muerto, the journey of the dead man, if you want the Spanish of it, was never the type of road that kept its promises. Late spring of 1883. A stagecoach rolled south across that basin in the territory of New Mexico, pulling a long tail of alkali dust behind it. The heat had already gone savage by mid-morning, bending the air above the flats into trembling ribbons. Mesquite and creosote crouched low to the cracked earth on either side of the trail, and between them there was nothing for miles. Bleached rock, a hawk or two riding the thermals, and the constant grinding of iron wheel rims working through dirt so dry it puffed like flour. The coach carried 5 passengers. A fat cattle buyer from Socorro who slept with his hat over his face. A Methodist preacher with red-rimmed eyes who clutched his Bible like a man holding his own hand. A drummer peddling patent medicines out of a brass-buckled case. And on the right-hand bench, pressed against the door with her reticule in her lap, a young woman named Della Mercer. Della was 24 years old and frightened in the dignified, quiet way of someone who has decided not to show it. She wore a dress the color of sage and a small hat pinned at a careful angle. Brown hair swept up the way you'd pin it for your own wedding, which is precisely what she was heading to. Her intended, a schoolteacher named Thomas Hadley, was waiting in Tularosa. They'd written letters for 9 months. She knew the shape of his handwriting better than she knew his face. She was riding more than 130 miles alone to marry a man she'd met twice, because in 1883 on the frontier, that wasn't unusual. That was just the arithmetic of hope. What frightened her wasn't Thomas, and it wasn't the wedding. It was this road. The Jornada del Muerto had eaten travelers before. It was a stretch of country that didn't belong to civilization yet, not really. It belonged to the hawks and the rattlers, and whoever was bold or desperate enough to work its margins. Della kept her eyes moving to the small, dusty window and told herself she was fine. The 5th passenger boarded at the way station at the north end of the basin. He said almost nothing. He handed over his fare, exact coins, no fumbling, took the left-hand bench across from Della, settled his battered hat low over his eyes, and folded his arms. Not folded them to sleep, folded them to be left alone. He was lean and sun-darkened, maybe 40, with a jaw that looked carved rather than grown, and a coat that had seen better decades. One of his boots had been resoled at least twice. There was dust in the creases of his hands, the way dust gets into stone, not sitting on the surface, but inside it. He gave his name as Roan when the preacher asked. Just Roan. He didn't offer more and didn't seem to notice that the drummer found this unsatisfying. Della noticed that when the coach stopped to rest the team at midday, every other passenger climbed out to stretch. Roan stayed seated. He wasn't sleeping. His eyes under that hat brim tracked the driver on the box, the station hand checking the wheel hubs, and the tree line a quarter mile to the west. He moved only once, shifted slightly so the left side of his coat fell open a half inch. Della had grown up around men who wore guns. She understood what that meant. She decided not to stare. The man who had set all this in motion wasn't riding the coach. He was already out there waiting. Cyrus Vane had worked the Tularosa Basin and the Jornada for going on 6 years, and he'd become the sort of problem that whole counties talked about in careful voices. He wasn't a simple road agent. Road agents rob you and ride on. Vane was organized, a man who thought in terms of territory. who kept the local law skittish through bribes and the unspoken knowledge of what happened to people who pushed him. He was broad-shouldered and handsome in the rough way of a man who knows it, with the habit of smiling at you slowly like he was giving you time to catch up to what he'd already decided. He had 2 brothers on the Jornada that spring. The older one, Della, was cold-tempered. Not hot. Cold. Della was the type who'd cut a fence and then sit down on the other side and smoke a cigarette while he waited for you to notice. The younger brother, Cutter, was the opposite. Loud, easily offended, quick to a weapon, the type of man other outlaws find exhausting. Together they balanced each other out in the worst possible way. The tip on Della Mercer had come from a man named Elias Scoble, who ran the way station at the north end of the basin. Scoble had been on Vane's informal payroll for 3 years. Not much, a few dollars here and there for coach schedules and passenger lists. He was the soft corruption that doesn't think of itself as corruption, just as getting by. When the next coach south rolled through carrying a young woman traveling alone to a wedding, Scoble sent a rider to Vane's camp with the details before the axle grease was even cold. Vane heard about her and did what he always did. Smiled slowly, made a decision. He didn't want ransom. He had enough money, by outlaw standards. What Cyrus Vane wanted, out in that desolate stretch where nobody argued with him, was someone to want to be there. He'd decided, without asking, that this would be Della Mercer. He told Dell and Cutter to go take the coach. The ambush came late afternoon when the basin light went horizontal and orange and shadows turned long and strange. 3 riders came up out of a dry wash to the east with no ceremony about it. No warning. No pause at a distance. Just the sudden thunder of horses and drawn weapons. The driver hauled back on the reins. The team screamed and fought the bits. Inside the coach, the cattle buyer woke with a shout. The preacher went white, and Della grabbed the window frame with both hands. The drummer made the mistake of reaching for his belt. Dell's rifle put a hole in the coach door an inch from his elbow. After that, the drummer held very still. Cutter yanked the door open. His eyes swept the compartment and stopped on Della. That told you everything you needed to know about Cutter. Roan hadn't moved. Still folded, hat still low. He looked at Cutter with the mild attention of a man watching a fly land on a table. Cutter put a pistol on him. "You, out." "All right," Roan said, flat, unhurried. He stepped down from the coach without glancing at the gun. "Here is where you have to pay attention, friend, because this is the hinge the whole story turns on. Every man on that road, if they'd known who Roan was, would have understood that the sensible thing was to shoot him right there. But they didn't know. They saw a dusty nobody in worn-out boots with the manner of a man who'd quit fighting some years back. Roan watched them reach that conclusion and he let them keep it. He handed over a worn leather wallet when Cutter asked. He kept his eyes on the ground. Dell rode over, looked at Della, and told the driver to unhitch one of the wheel horses. They put her on it. The other passengers were sent walking back toward the way station. Roan went with them, slowly at the back, until the riders stopped paying attention. He didn't speed up after that. He just started watching the country. The camp was in a box canyon about 8 miles east of the stage road, tucked behind a fold of red rock that hid it from the flats entirely. Vane had used it for years. There was a rope arrangement across a narrow cut at the canyon's mouth, not a crossing bridge, but a set of lines strung to give warning if they were disturbed. A picket line with 6 horses ran along the east wall, and 3 men besides the brothers were in camp. 9 total, by the time the riding party brought Della in at dusk. Roan came into that canyon 2 hours after dark. Nobody saw him come. He found a spot in the shadow of the north wall behind a pile of deadfall and rock, sat down, and spent the next hour listening, where each man slept, where the fire was, where they'd put Della, a bedroll near the south wall, one of Vane's men posted 8 feet from her. He listened to Cutter griping about something and Dell telling him to shut it. He listened to Vane himself speaking to Della in the soft, reasonable voice of a man who has confused his own reasonableness for a virtue, telling her she would come to understand things given time. Della said nothing back. Roan heard that silence from the dark and thought it was brave. He found the picket line before anything else. The horses were the priority, had been since the road. You might wonder, friend, why Roan hadn't drawn at the ambush, why he'd walked himself into a bandit camp like a man delivered under guard. The answer is simple arithmetic. 3 riders, bad light, 2 more men still out of sight, wrong ground. Camps are easier than roads. On a road, everything is moving. In a camp, you know where every man will be. Now, before we go any further into that canyon, let me step out for just a second. If you've been riding along with me tonight, do me a favor and hit the subscribe button. These stories take real work, and knowing you're out there keeps the fire going. And tell me something. Where are you listening from tonight, and what time is it where you are? Drop it in the comments. I read everyone, and I genuinely love knowing who's out there in the dark with me. All right, back in we go. Roan was halfway to the picket line when one of the guards nearly found him. Or found the space where he'd been, which isn't quite the same thing. The man swept his lantern in a slow arc and caught nothing but rock and shadow. He stood there a moment with the lamp held up, listening. The camp was quiet. He went back to the fire. What he didn't notice was that 3 of the 6 horses on the picket line now had their lead ropes tied in slip knots instead of the square knots they'd started with. Easy to miss if you weren't looking for it. Roan moved like a man who'd learned early that a snapped twig could be the last sound he'd make. It was near the dead hour, 2 in the morning by Roan's reckoning, when Dell recognized him. Dell had been sitting up, as he often did, feeding small sticks to the coals, keeping them alive without building the fire up, which told you something about how Dell's mind worked. He looked up when Roan stepped into the firelight, which Roan allowed because it was time. Dell went still, eyes over Roan's face, down to his hands, back up. He said quietly, "I know you." "Maybe," Roan said. "They said you were dead." Dell's voice didn't rise, it got careful. "Out past the Cimarron, 4 years ago." "3, Roan said. "And I wasn't dead, I was done." Dell didn't go for his gun. Sat right where he was, hands where they were, and thought about his situation. That was Dell's way. The fire was the only light. Cutter was asleep. The other men were asleep. And across those coals sat the man that riders from the Cimarron country had called the Ghost, not as any kind of compliment, but as the best way to explain how men died in those parts without anyone seeing the shooting. Even the horses on the picket line had gone still. "What do you want?" Dell said. "The woman goes free, unharmed, tonight." Roan paused. "And I want your horse, mine's a mile out. I'll leave yours there." Dell looked at the fire. "Cyrus won't stand for it." "I didn't ask Cyrus." A long quiet. Then, "What happens to us?" "Depends what you all do in the next hour," Roan said. He'd already been to Della not long before this, maybe 15 minutes in the shadow of the south wall, crouched by her bedroll with one finger to his lips and his voice lower than cloth on cloth. He'd told her what was coming, pressed a short-bladed knife into her hand, showed her the grip. Said there would be noise, possibly fire, and she needed to move for the canyon mouth the moment the horses went. He told her what the slip knots looked like, said pull them if she got there first. She'd studied him for a moment in the dark. "You're the man from the coach." "Yes." She thought about asking more. Let it go. She took the knife and looked at it with the focused calm of a woman deciding something about herself she'd been circling for a long time. The camp came apart faster than he'd planned. They usually do. Dell held to his word and stayed put. But Cutter woke, and Cutter never woke at the right moment. His instinct was a shout, which pulled 2 more men out of their blankets. Roan had already cut the main line on the picket gate. He touched the lantern he'd repositioned to the edge of the deadfall. 900 pounds of seasoned cow pony, when it decides it does not want to be somewhere, does not discuss the matter. The 3 horses on the slip knots went first. They hit the others coming the opposite direction. Then there were 6 horses going 6 directions in a dark canyon, and the men on the ground were scrambling not to be stomped. Roan moved through it like he was somewhere else entirely. He came around the south wall. Della was already on her feet, already moving toward him. He had 3 strides on the men behind him and meant to keep them. What he hadn't counted on was Cyrus Vane, who hadn't been sleeping. Vane had been awake on the canyon's east rim, and he came down the slope fast, got between Della and the canyon mouth, pistol out. The smile was gone. "Stop," Vane said. Still controlled, but with the thing underneath it showing now. "Both of you." Roan stopped. Edge of the firelight, hands out, level in front of him. Vane looked him over. "Who are you?" "Just a passenger." "The hell you are." He stepped closer. "Put down whatever you're carrying." "Mr. Vane," Roan said, "I'm going to ask you once to let her go." Vane laughed, short, hard. "You're going to ask me." "Once," Roan said. "That's all this is." Vane raised the gun toward Roan's face, the way men who've never been asked properly tend to do. And Della Mercer, who had spent 24 years being gentle and frightened and patient and right, stepped sideways to Vane's left and fired. She wasn't trained. The knife was still in her other hand, and the little derringer from her reticule was shaking. And she hit Cyrus Vane in the shoulder at about 4 feet, which is the distance at which most things that need doing actually get done. It was enough. Vane went down on one knee with a shout. The pistol dropped. Roan kicked it away in the same motion he was already starting, and then they were running. The canyon mouth, the rope cuts, the narrow dark, and then mesquite smoke and cold desert air opening up around them like a door. Behind them in the canyon, shouts and the last frightened churning of hooves. Nothing organized itself in time to follow. The terrain didn't allow for it. They walked 4 miles in the dark before they reached Roan's horse, a gray and brown gelding that was considerably calmer than it had any right to be. He put Della up and led it by the reins. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Come morning, riders from the Tularosa County Deputy's office reached the Box Canyon and found Vane's camp in considerable disorder. Vane was there, wounded and furious, but alive. Dell and Cutter and 4 others with him. 2 men had walked out during the night and were picked up on the flats. The evidence at camp stacked against the testimony of the driver and the 3 other passengers who'd already filed reports was more than enough. And there in Vane's saddlebag was a folded letter in a familiar hand, detailing the coach schedule and passenger list, signed at the bottom by Elias Scoble. Scoble was arrested at the way station before noon. He protested. Nobody listened. The Jornada Basin, which had been Vane's private road for 6 years, went quiet by midsummer in a way that ranchers and freight managers hadn't felt in memory. But that piece of the story belongs to other men and other days. What I want to tell you about is the morning Roan brought Della to Tularosa. He wouldn't go into town. Stopped on the low hill north of the main street and pointed out the schoolhouse where Thomas Hadley worked. Easy enough to spot, being the only building with chalk dust on the windowsills. Said her man was probably in there and she ought to go down. She sat the horse for a moment and looked at the town. 2 days of trail still on her. She looked, Roan thought, like a woman who knew something about herself that she hadn't known on the road south. "Come in," she said. "Just for a meal. Thomas would want to thank you." "I appreciate that," Roan said. "But I've got road." She turned those clear eyes on him, the ones that had been watching him since the coach. "You said you were done 3 years ago." "That's right. But you weren't." He thought about it. "No," he said. "Not quite." She held the knife out, handle toward him. He shook his head. She looked at it a moment, then put it in her pocket, which seemed right. Then she rode down the hill toward the chalk-dusted schoolhouse, and the man and the life she'd come 130 miles to find. Roan watched until she reached the door. The schoolteacher came out. A long moment in the morning light, and then Thomas Hadley took both her hands in his, and Roan turned the gray and brown gelding north and didn't look back. "I've heard it told, friend, that Della Hadley," she took his name that same week, named the first classroom she ever ran as a schoolteacher for a man called Roan. Just the name on the board, no explanation. Anyone who asked was told it was for someone who'd helped her on the road. She never gave more than that, and nobody pushed. Some debts you settle not by paying the person back, but by carrying their name somewhere. It can still do good. Here's what I keep coming back to. Roan didn't go into that canyon loud. He went in quiet, hands open, and he turned the ground itself against the men who thought they owned it. That's patience with a purpose, not the patience of someone who's given up, but someone who knows exactly what they're doing and is willing to let the situation do the work. I've thought about it more than I should probably admit. There are people you'll meet, if you're lucky, who see you in trouble and don't make it about themselves. They don't need you watching when they do it. They hand you a knife and a plan and some extra courage you didn't know you were already carrying, and then they ride on before you can thank them, right? You never quite get to settle the debt. The best you can do is notice when someone else needs it, and do something about it. Those people are rarer than water on the Jornada del Muerto, but they exist. And on a long night on a hard road, that matters. All right, friend, that's the story of Roan and Della Mercer, and the night a box canyon stopped working for the men who built it. If this story rode along with you tonight, drop a like before you go. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. More stories are coming, and I'd hate for you to miss one. One last thing. These are original works of fiction, written with the help of artificial intelligence and a genuine love for the Old West. The people and events are invented. Any resemblance to real men or women, living or long gone, is coincidence. The Jornada del Muerto is real. Roan was never on it, or if he was, nobody who saw him came back to say so. Good night, partner. Ride safe.